The next thing we're going to talk about are the theories of economic policies, and there are many, but we're only going to talk about a few of them. Laissez-faire economics, that's the philosophy where the government should leave the economy alone. We talked earlier in the semester about Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations and this idea of an invisible hand. We don't need the government to plan anything, that if people are left to their own self-interest, everything will work itself out through supply and demand. Wages will go up where we need them to, and they'll go back down where we don't. Competition is extremely important in this, and this was Herbert Hoover, who was the president at the time of the beginning of the Great Depression's philosophy. He just thought if the government stayed out of it, that everything would work itself out. The next one is the Keynesian economic theory, and this is more government involvement and why it's necessary. Looking at the formula for gross domestic product, consumer spending and business spending are extremely important, and John Maynard Keynes says that if those two components aren't working, then it is necessary for the government to step in and to be the spender of last resort. And so this was pretty much the approach during the Great Depression, and all of his New Deal ideas were based on this Keynesian theory. The last one we're going to talk about is the supply side economics. This is a theory that Ronald Reagan embraced, and they called it trickle-down economics. They thought that production pushed the economy, and that if they were able to stimulate businesses and give them an incentive to hire more people, that all of that wealth would eventually trickle down to the workers. So what their theory was is give tax breaks to the business owners, encourage entrepreneurship, and encourage businesses to hire more. And the more people that are working and paying into the tax system, the less taxes that everyone would have to pay. The Laffer curve was invented by Arthur Laffer, and it discusses and it shows the relationship between tax rates and tax revenues. And basically what it says that at some point the tax rate will get so high that will give people an incentive to work less or potentially even not work at all. So this is what the Laffer curve looks like. And what we're looking at here, this is the tax rate. So 10%, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, all the way over to 100%. And this is the revenue that would be generated at these different tax rates. And so what it's saying is at 50% tax rate, this is how much revenue that you would be able to bring in. And so as you start to increase the tax rate, you're going to make less and less in taxes. So his point was, for example, if the tax rate is 80% and they're taking 80% of your income, that this is how much revenue would be generated. And his philosophy says that if you actually decrease taxes, give people more of an incentive to work, let them keep more of their money, then you will actually see the amount of tax revenue that's collected would go up. So by a 30% tax decrease, you would actually see an increase in the tax revenue. And I've put some different tax brackets throughout history. Obviously, the creation of the income tax was with the 16th Amendment to the Constitution in 1913. Started out with 7 different tax brackets, which means income levels. There were 7 different percentages based on how much money you made. The lowest tax bracket was 1%. They would take 1% of your income. The highest tax bracket was actually 7%. And in 1913, you would pay 7% if you made over $500,000. What this column does is it adjusts that to equal what that would be worth in 2011. So because of inflation and all of that, we're able to look at how much in 2011 in this column. So it's interesting if you look at the tax rates. In 1917, actually the top tax bracket went up to 67%. But if you come down here in 1944, we had 24 different tax brackets. The lowest percentage that you would pay is 23%, and the highest percentage that you would pay if you made over $200,000 is 94%, which I think is unbelievable. And then you can notice that those start to go down a little bit. Then this is from 1965 to 2013, and you can see here the idea that Ronald Reagan had. Let's decrease the taxes, this trickle-down idea, supply-side economics. And so he lowered the highest tax bracket to 50%, and then he went on to decrease them several more times. And then we see some Bush tax cuts here, the second Bush, and then this is the taxes today. We have 7 different tax brackets. The lowest is 10%, the highest is 39.6% if you make over $400,000.